Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the Enhancing Resilient Communities or ERC initiatives in the Philippines. ERC is a program focused on humanitarian reform and resilience building. It was implemented in the Philippines from 2023 to 2025 and it is part of the broader United Nations Emergency Relief Coordinator's flagship initiative. To put it simply, the core idea of ERC is this: how can communities be placed more at the center of disaster response and resilience building instead of being treated as passive recipients of aid? For me, that is the most important question ERC is trying to answer. Because in many traditional humanitarian systems, communities are often consulted and asked about their needs, but sometimes it stops there. They are consulted, yes, but they are not truly included in decision making. They do not always have a voice in planning, coordination, or discussion about funding. So even though they are the ones directly affected by disasters, there is still a distance between the people experiencing the crisis and the institutions designing the response. And that is exactly what ERC is trying to change. It aims to move away from the usual top down approach and make humanitarian action more people centered, more community led, and more grounded in resilience. This means the question is no longer just what do you need? It also includes what do you already know, what do you already have, and are you capable of doing? How can you be more meaningfully involved in shaping solutions? This kind of approach is relevant in the Philippines because we know that our country is one of the most disaster vulnerable in the world. Almost every year, we face typhoons, floods, and communities that are repeatedly affected by climate related hazards. So, when we talk about resilience, the focus cannot be limited to emergency response alone. It cannot be just about relief and recovery. We must also ask who gets to have a voice, who gets to make decisions, and how can communities truly be strengthened before, during, and after disasters. What is valuable about ERC is that it recognizes that communities are not only vulnerable. Yes, they do have vulnerabilities, that is true, but beyond those vulnerabilities, they also have assets, capacities, coping strategies, and local knowledge that are deeply important. In other words, ERC does not see communities as people who simply are waiting for help. It sees them as people with knowledge, experience, and the ability to take an active role in building resilience. And that is a major shift in the way humanitarian work is understood. In actual implementation, pilot areas were selected in regions 5, 8, and Caraga. In these areas, the initiative conducted 34 consultations, 12 pilot areas, and engaged more than 20 actors from government, humanitarian organizations, and local stakeholders. This is an important detail because it shows that ERC did not remain only at the level of vision or policy statements. There were actual consultations, field engagements, and pilot testing carried out on the ground. One of the methods used in ERC was listen, discover, and enhance approach. I want to highlight this because the logic behind it is very strong and practical. Instead of only asking communities what they lack, it also tries to discover what strengths already exist within them. The mindset is not only what is missing, but also what is already here and how can this be strengthened. For me, this is a very important shift because when people only see a community in terms of its deficiencies, the tendency is to view that community as dependent or helpless. But when you also recognize its strengths, the dynamic changes. The approach becomes more partnership. There is more dignity. There is more trust. And there is a greater chance that the intervention will be sustainable because it is anchored in the realities and capacities that people already have. Another important part of ERC is what they call community conversations. These discussions are not focused only on needs or gaps. They also emphasize recovery action and resilience. So instead of always framing the community as victims or beneficiaries, ERC changes the narrative and shows that the community has a role, has the initiative, and has something to contribute to its own recovery. This is important because the language we use to describe communities matters. If they are constantly portrayed as incapable, there is a greater chance that they will be excluded from leadership and planning. But if they are recognized as capable actors, genuine participation becomes much more possible. And I think this is one of the most powerful aspects of ERC. It does not only want to change the process, it also wants to change the mindset. Another important point is that ERC also places strong emphasis on inclusion. This process includes persons with disabilities under the principle of nothing about us without us. This is a very important principle because it shows that resilience does not only mean the same thing or look the same way for everyone. This experience, the experience rather of women is different from that of men. The experience of persons with disabilities is different as well. It also varies depending on age, livelihood, and social position. So if an initiative is truly serious about resilience, it must also be serious about inclusion. If we look at ERC from a broader perspective, we can see that communities are not its only target. It also involves local government units, national government agencies, UN bodies, humanitarian organizations, donors, development partners, and even private sector actors. So we can say that ERC is not only about changing community participation. It is also about changing relationships, coordination, power structures within the humanitarian system. This is where the initiative's social impact potential comes in. It is not just a simple communication campaign, it is not merely an awareness campaign, it is trying to influence how institutions listen, how they coordinate, and even how resources might be channeled more directly to local actors. In other words, ERC is not just asking communities to participate more, it is also asking institutions to share space, share authority, and rethink how decisions are made. Of course, even if ERC is promising, it still has limitations. Based on the available public information, there is still limited clear evidence when it comes to formal impact indicators, budget scale, regional allocation, and measurable long-term outcomes. So at this point, ERC is clearer as a strong process innovation than as a fully proven outcomes model. We can see that the design is good. The framework is inclusive and the pilot activities are promising. But stronger evidence is still needed to determine how significant its long-term impact really is on community resilience and disaster governance. But even so, ERC still matters. Why? Because it shows that humanitarian action can be reimagined. It is possible to move away from a purely top-down model. It is also possible to build a system that listens more, more inclusive, and gives greater value to local knowledge and community agency. So in the end, ERC in the Philippines matters not only because it is a program about disaster resilience, it matters because it reminds us that resilience is not only about survival or recovery, it is also about voice, participation, inclusion, and power. And this time, especially in a disaster prone country like the Philippines, this kind of perspective is extremely important. Thank you very much.